Good morning, class. I'm Teacher Mary Ann, and our lesson for today is about the ecosystem. So, what is the concept of ecosystem? Ecosystem is that everything in the world is connected. The plants, animals depend on each other to survive. This connection of living things to each other is called biodiversity. These plants and animals within an area interact with each other and with the non-living elements of the area, such as climate, water, soil, and so on. Learning objectives. At the end of this lesson, the students should be able to define and understand the term ecosystem and its types, identify and describe the different components of an ecosystem, including biotic and abiotic factors and their interactions. And lastly, apply creativity and artistic skills to visually represent the diversity and complexity of ecosystem. So, next. What is an ecosystem? So, the ecosystem is the structural and functional unit of ecology where the living organisms interact with each other and the surrounding environment. An ecosystem is a community of living things, biotic, and interacting with their non-living surroundings, abiotic, in a specific area. Or in short, an ecosystem is a community of plants, animals, and smaller organisms that live, feed, reproduce, and interact with the same area or environment. And remember, class, an ecosystem will fail if they do not remain in balance. There are two types of ecosystem, the terrestrial ecosystem and the aquatic ecosystem. So, what is terrestrial ecosystem? A terrestrial ecosystem is a land-based community or organisms and the interactions of biotic and abiotic components in a given area. First, we have the forest. A forest is an area of land dominated by the trees and animals that live in coordination with the abiotic factors of the environment. Um, some abiotic factors of the forest are the trees, plants, animals, fungi, and microorganisms such as bacteria, archaea, and fungi. The second one is the grassland. In a grassland ecosystem, the vegetation is dominated by grasses and herbs. And the third one, we have the tundra. In physical geography, tundra is a type of biome where the tree growth is hindered by the low temperature and short growing season. And it is predominantly found in the northern regions of the world. And some of the key features of the tundra are the climate, vegetations, wildlife, and adaptations. Remember, class, that tundra ecosystem are important for global climate regulation as they store large amount of carbon in the permafrost. They also provide habitat for a range of species and support indigenous communities that rely on the tundra for their livelihoods. And the fourth one, class, is a desert. It's a barren area of landscape where little precipitation occurs and consequently living conditions are hostile for plant and animal life. So now, let's move to the second types of ecosystem, which is the aquatic ecosystem. Aquatic ecosystem are ecosystem present in a body of water, and this can be further divided into two types, namely freshwater and marine. So, what are freshwater ecosystem? Freshwater ecosystem is an aquatic ecosystem that includes lakes, ponds, rivers, streams, and wetlands. These have no salt content in contrast with the marine ecosystem. Um, these ecosystems are essential for supporting the variety of plant and animal species. Some of the key features of freshwater ecosystems includes water source, biodiversity, nutrient cycling, and interconnectedness and the human impact. And also, Freshwater ecosystems are not also important for the organisms that inhabit this but also for us humans. These provide drinking water, support agriculture, and after recreational opportunities and contribute to the overall health of the planet. And the second aquatic ecosystem is the marine ecosystem. The marine ecosystem includes seas and oceans. These have a more substantial salt content and greater biodiversity in comparison to the freshwater ecosystem. It also encompasses all living organisms from microscopic plankton to a large marine mammals, as well as the non-living components of the marine environment such as water, sunlight, and nutrients. Remember class, marine ecosystems are vital for the health of our planet. They produce oxygen, regulate climate, provide food and resources for human populations, and support recreational activities such as fishing, diving, and tourism. And now class, we are done discussing the two types of ecosystems, which is the terrestrial ecosystem and the aquatic ecosystem. Now, let's move to the structure of the ecosystem. The structure of an ecosystem is characterized by the organization of both biotic and abiotic components. This includes the disruption of energy in our environment, and it also includes the climatic conditions prevailing that in particular environment. The structures of ecosystems have two types also, and these are the biotic components and the abiotic components. The structures of ecosystem has two components, which are the biotic components and the abiotic components. As you can see in the diagram, um, uh, ecosystem has two components, which are the biotic and abiotic components. Um, in abiotic components, it has two types, which are physical components and chemical components. But before I discuss what is physical and chemical components, let us define what is abiotic components of ecosystem. So, abiotic components of ecosystem is the non-living materials in an ecosystem such as minerals, gases, liquids, and chemical are referred to as biotic or non-biotic factors. Abiotic, meaning not alive, are non-living factors that affect living organisms. Environmental factors such as habitat like pond, lake, ocean, desert, or mountains. Weather such as temperature, cloud cover, rain, snow, hurricanes, etc. are biotic factors. Furthermore, an abiotic factor is a non-living condition or thing such as climate or habitat that influences or affect an ecosystem and the organism in it. And abiotic factors can determine which species or organisms will survive in a given environment. And now, let's proceed to the abiotic um, types of ecosystem, which are the physical components and the chemical components. In the physical components of abiotic components, it refers to the non-living elements that make up the environment. These components includes the atmospheres, which the layer of the gases surrounding the Earth, including oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide, and other traces gases. And the next is the hydrosphere, where all forms of water on Earth, including oceans, lakes, rivers, groundwater, and atmospheric water vapor. And additionally, the lithosphere, um, where the solid outer layer of the Earth, which it includes the Earth's crust, rocks, minerals, and soil. Um, Also, in physical components, we have the geosphere and the climate. In geosphere, the entire solid Earth, including the lithosphere, mantle, and the core. And in climate, the long-term weather patterns in a particular region, including temperature, precipitation, wind, and other atmospheric conditions. We also have the landforms, soil, and sunlight. In sunlight, the energy from the sun that drives various processes on Earth, such as photosynthesis and climate patterns. Um, these physical components interact with living organisms and shape the ecosystem in which they exist. The biotic components includes chemical components such as water, where water is essential for life and is a major abiotic component and in ecosystem. And the second one is the oxygen, where it is a crucial component for many organisms because it involves in respiration and energy production. And also we have the carbon dioxide, which it is an important component for photosynthesis in plants and is released during respiration by organisms. And the fourth one is the nitrogen, where it is a key component of proteins and nucleic acids and is essential for the growth and development of living organisms. And last, we have the minerals. Um, various minerals such as calcium, potassium, phosphorus, and iron are important abiotic components that are required for the functioning or organisms. And last, we have the sunlight because although it is not a chemical component, sunlight is an essential abiotic factor that provides energy for photosynthesis and drives many ecological processes. Um, these are just a few um, chemical components of abiotic factors. There are many other substances and elements that play important roles in the functioning of ecosystem. So, class, do you have any question about the physical and chemical components of abiotic? Okay, so now, so let's now proceed to the biotic ecosystem. So, biotic ecosystem or the biotic components of ecosystems is a different living organisms constitute to biotic components of an ecosystem. Um, this refers to a large life forms such as trees or mammals, small life forms such as insects, and microscopic life forms such as bacteria. Um, the meaning of biotic is related to life, which are living factors like plants, animals, fungi, and bacteria are all biotic or living factors. So, biotic components of ecosystems has three types also. Um, like in a biotic, it has physical and chemical components. In biotic, we have the producers, consumers, and decomposers. So, let us proceed to what is producers. Um, most important producers is the most important components of ecosystems because our producers are organisms which are able to manufacture organic compounds from inorganic substances from their environment. The food is produced for themselves and for other organisms. They depend directly on the abiotic component for their survival and production of nutrients. Producers are also known as autotrophs, which is derived from the Greek words autos, meaning self, and trophy, meaning nourishment. They include they induce rather into the ecosystems the energy required for its biological processes. In producers, it also extract nutrients from soil or oceans and manufacture their own food using photosynthesis. In the presence of carbon dioxide and sunlight, and so energy from the sun powers from the base of food chain. Producers are also thus known as primary producers. Um, an exception occurs in deep sea hydrothermal ecosystems where there is no sunlight. Here, the primary producers manufacture food through a process called chemosynthesis. So, what is the chemosynthesis? The chemosynthesis is a process of a certain organisms uses to produce energy, um, akin to photosynthesis, but without the utilization of sunlight. The energy comes from the oxidations or burning of a chemical which is sip up from the Earth's crust. So, the producers are either photoautotrophs or chemoautotrophs. So now, let's move to the consumers. Consumers are, as you can see in the diagram, it has the primary, secondary, and the tertiary consumers. So before that, let me discuss what consumer is. Consumers are organisms that obtain nutrients by consuming other organisms. These organisms are formally referred to heterotrophs, which derive from the Greek words heteros, meaning another or different, and tropy, meaning nourishment. A heterotroph is an organism that cannot synthesize their own food and must obtain it ready-made. They can be herbivores, carnivores, omnivores, or detrivores. Animals who derive from their required energy directly from the consuming the plants and plants only, it calls herbivores. It also known as primary consumers. Herbivores have special digestive systems that let them digest all kinds of plants, including grasses. Example of this is the rabbit, cattle, horses, sheep, insects, and etc. The next one is the carnivores. Carnivores are animals that feed on other animals. Carnivores generally eat herbivores or the secondary consumers, but occasionally eat other carnivores, also tertiary consumers. Example of these are the lion, tiger, cats, birds of prey, sharks, frogs, and etc. Carnivores can differentiate in two types. These are the predators and the scavengers. So, what is the predators and scavengers? Predators is an organism that hunts and kills other organisms for food. Example like the lions, tigers, sharks, wolves, snakes. And the scavengers are they are the one who eat the foods that has been killed and left behind by predators. And example of these are the vultures, raccoons, hyena, and etc. And as scavengers play an important role in the ecosystem by consuming the carcass of an animals that have been left to decompose. The decomposers and the decomposers and the retrivores complete the process by consuming the remains left by the scab. We also have the omnivores, and animals that feed on both plants and animals. Omnivores often are opportunistic general feeders with neither carnivore nor herbivore. Specializations for acquiring or processing food and are capable of consuming and do consume both animal protein and vegetations. Um, many many omnivores depend on a suitable mix of animals and plant food for long-term and good health and reproductions. Example of this is the human, bear, and etc. So, let's move to the detrivores. So, what is the detrivores? The detrivores are they feed on the dead plant and animal matter but perform an additional function which is to return essential nutrients back to the ecosystem in the process. Mm. The detrivores actually eat organic matter. They are essential for recycling of nutrients. Without them, Without them, dead plant material would not be returned to the soil for new growth. Examples, the worms, sea stars, crabs, dung flies. Additionally, the detrivores consume dead organic material such as carcasses, fallen leaves, dead plants, animals' dropping, and shed skin. Having consumed the material, the organisms then excretes or ingest waste. Um, this waste contains nutrients which are thus returned to the soil, facilitating new plant growth or made easier for the organisms to consume. By breaking down dead matter into smaller pieces, that rewards speed up the process of decomposition. And the last type of the um, biotic components is the decomposers. These are microorganisms which break down organic matter into inorganic compounds and derive their nutrition in the process. Decomposers break down complex compound into some simpler compounds without eating them. For example, fungi can grow on organic matter such as the dead trunk or a piece of bread and breaks it down and absorbing the nutrients without eating the wood or the bread. These are organisms that aid in decompositions of already dead or dying organisms. Decomposers secrete two enzymes to digest organic matter and then absorb, resulting to molecules. Example of these are the bacteria and fungi. The functions of the ecosystems is very essential because it regulates the ecological processes, supports life systems, and renders stability. It also responsible for the cycling of nutrients between the biotic and abiotic components. It maintains a balance among the various trophic levels in the ecosystems. It also cycles the minerals through the biosphere. The abiotic components help in the synthesis of organic components that involves the exchange of energy. And now, let's proceed to the food chain. I know that you all are familiar with the food chain, and um, let me um, expand and add it. Let me expand it further and add it to your prior knowledge. Um, During the biological process, light energy is converted into chemical energy and is passed on through successive levels. The flow of energy from producer to a consumer and eventually to an apex predator or detrivore is called the food chain. Um, Living organisms think requires energy to survive, whether it be plants, animals, or us humans. Um, Energy is required by living beings to grow. Plants get their energy from photosynthesis, and animals get energy from the food they consume. And so, additionally, a food chain is the sequence of who eats whom in a biological community and ecosystems to obtain nutrition. Um, a food chain shows how each living thing gets foods and how nutrients and energy are passed from creature to creatures. As you can see, I have here a simple food chain. Um, First, you can see the grasshopper eats the grass. and the mice eats the grasshopper. Then the snake eats the mice. Then the eagle eats the snakes. When the hawk die, fungi breaks the bodies down and turns into nutrients. The nutrients, along with the sun and water, cause the grasshopper to grow. And the exchange of energy continues. um, for you to understand it further, a food chain starts with a primary energy source and end with the top predators animals that have little or no natural enemies. When any organism dies, it is eventually eaten by detrivores like vultures, worms, and crabs. And the broken down by decomposers, mostly bacteria and fungi, and the exchange of energy continues. Food chains make a full circle and energy is passed from plant to animal to the decomposer and back to the plant. And there can be many links in food chains but not too many. If there are too many links, and then the animal at the end would not get enough energy. And so, that's the end of my discussion for today. And I hope you enjoy and learn something. Before I end this lesson, I have here an activity so for you to apply the knowledge you gain on our lesson for today. Um, your activity is find the magazines or newspapers and any recycled materials in your home and create a collage depicting different types of ecosystem, incorporating drawing or paintings of organisms and abiotic factors. And yeah, and that's all. Thank you for listening and have a great day.